Coming up on We Talk News this week, there's trouble brewing in D.C. as a Republican House committee is trying to stop the rescheduling of cannabis. Andrew Behringer reports from our nation's capital. Is rescheduling in trouble?
We have this whole process where we've acknowledged now that cannabis is less harmful and less dangerous than we thought it once was. But guess what's more dangerous than cannabis? Cannabis criminalization.
Okay, so maybe the focus for the cannabis industry should be on descheduling. Isn't that what the industry wanted all along? And what impact will overturning a law that has stood for 40 years have on the rescheduling process, and why? Plus, New York is slowly settling into their adult use market and rules, but there is still tension in the Control Commission in that Empire State as they continue to shut down the thousands of illegal operators. And only days remain to get your public comment into the DEA about rescheduling, and I'll have a special editorial in the news this week with Pro Cannabis Media's comment in a 3-part editorial. All that and state-by-state cannabis news on We Talk News with Elena Pinto. Next.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to We Talk News, Pro Cannabis Media's production of cannabis news from coast to coast. I'm Elena Pinto. The industry continues to wait and solicit public comments on the proposed move of cannabis to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act. July 22nd is the deadline. So if you haven't shared your thoughts, click on the link or connect on the QR code to get directly to the regulations.gov page where you can enter your comments. All right, even though 97% of those comments have been positive, there is now a Republican-led movement in the House to block the rescheduling process altogether. Couple that with a Supreme Court decision to overturn a 40-year law that might also delay or outright block the move. There has been a lot going on in Washington, D.C. over the past few weeks, so here's Andrew Behringer.
I'm Andrew Behringer, and this is the DC Area Report for We Talk News. The Supreme Court overturns the Chevron doctrine. In recent developments coming from the Supreme Court, the cannabis industry faces regulatory uncertainty in a landmark 6-3 decision where the Supreme Court has overturned the Chevron doctrine, a 40-year-old legal principle that required courts to defer to federal agencies' interpretations of certain laws. Now, this ruling significantly limits administrative state authority and has far-reaching implications, particularly for the cannabis industry. This decision has sparked debate among many experts about its impact on cannabis rescheduling efforts. Some argue it could create chaos and potentially derail the current ongoing process to reclassify cannabis as a Schedule 3 drug. Concerns include potential delays in implementing new regulations, weakened consumer protections, and challenges to the DEA's ability to regulate intoxicating hemp products. Now, while this ruling's full impact remains to be seen, it's clear that the cannabis industry will need to adapt to a new legal landscape. Future litigation is expected, and state-level regulations may also evolve in response to this seismic shift in federal administrative law. Now, in other news, the Republican-led House Appropriations Committee has approved legislation to halt the Biden administration's cannabis rescheduling plans. This amendment to the funding bill prohibits the Department of Justice from spending federal funds to reschedule cannabis under the current Controlled Substances Act. Now, this move could deal a blow to the regulated cannabis industry, which stood to benefit from potential tax code changes. An additional amendment by Representative Barbara Lee to protect state and tribal cannabis programs was rejected, despite bipartisan support. The committee's action highlights the ongoing political divide over cannabis policy and present a major obstacle to federal cannabis reform efforts. For more on rescheduling and its potential impact on social equity, we now go to pro-cannabis media founder Jimmy Young.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm PCM Founder Jimmy Young, and yes, that public comment period is still open until July 22nd. We are sharing the QR code link that takes you right to that website on the screen for as much of this news show as we possibly can. Now, if you haven't already, please take the time to join the over 30,000 people who've already sent in their comments. I posted Pro Cannabis Media's comment on a LinkedIn page this week, and I will have a 3-part editorial at the end of the A, the B, and the C blocks in this week's We Talk News. Now, I recently attended a very impressive crash course on the state of cannabis advocacy run by the Parabola Center of Boston in Providence, Rhode Island, this past weekend.
And I am excited for you all joining this crash course today to think through how we can get that done. I'm so proud to be in this fight with all of you. Get out there, learn a lot, and go change the world.
If anyone's going to do that, it's the Parabola Center of Boston, founded by former Cannabis Control Commissioner Shalene Title. Their mission is to provide everyone with education and access and expertise to support cannabis legalization policies that put people over profits.
Once prohibition is removed, our systems now in 2024 are set up to immediately lead all the way up in harms to unchecked corporate power, and those harms are going to be at the same level as prohibition if we don't stop it.
You look around the room, you've got friends. Everybody was pro-cannabis and they're advocates, but how does the message get out to the people that weren't there? That, to me, is the biggest challenge, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny because we talked about this today, which is that there's a perception that cannabis is moving forward in the right way, right? Like with the Biden administration's rescheduling, and people that may not be as connected or living in cannabis every single day like we are, understand that that move actually is a move that will hurt us, right?
I was disappointed that in the rescheduling review itself, one of the factors that the agencies have to consider is the history and harm, or the history of cannabis control. And you probably wouldn't be surprised that both HHS and DOJ were able to conclude their evaluation and talk about the history of cannabis control without ever mentioning racism, without ever mentioning that it was the root and motivation of cannabis criminalization to begin with. But we have an opportunity, the president has an opportunity to direct his agencies to take on this harm.
The event featured a dream team lineup of speakers, researchers, lobbyists, and other advocates, all with similar messages. If the goal of cannabis advocacy is legalization, then rescheduling is not going to be enough to help put people over profits.
Rescheduling does not legalize cannabis. It keeps it criminalized. And really, it puts it in the hands of the pharmaceutical industry, which as Americans we know has not been an industry that has been serving us. It has been making us and keeping us sick rather than what cannabis has the ability to do, which, as we all know, is amazing.
And so I think that that's something that is a narrative that the Indigenous Cannabis Industry Association can share with just the broader and global cannabis world, is to respect the divine feminine energy of the plant and to be reminded that many of our indigenous communities had a relationship with the plant prior to European contact.
Reporting from Providence, Rhode Island, I'm PCM founder Jimmy Young for We Talk News.
A reminder once again that the public comment period on the proposed move to Schedule 3 continues, and Pro Cannabis Media's founder Jimmy Young will have an editorial and share his own public comment at the end of this news show. Meanwhile, on the regulatory side of the industry, making the rules, enforcing the rules, and then dealing with them has been challenging for both New York State and Massachusetts. Both regulatory commissions have their respected state legislatures looking over the shoulders with threats of placing their organizations into receivership. New York has already replaced some of their leadership at the Office of Cannabis Management. And this past week, they were busy awarding over 100 licenses and continuing to close down illegal ones. The Empire State now has 144 operational licensed dispensaries, and the OCM has issued over 720 permits during this calendar year alone. That number does not include the conditional 463 adult use permits for social equity retailers. The new interim director of New York's Office of Cannabis Management, Felicia Reed, is hoping to keep this regular licensing effort open. New York did close down on one illegal dispensary, the town of New Scotland in Albany County, as Smoke Right finally gets shut down after inspectors found cannabis and psilocybin in some of their products for sale. In Massachusetts, the State House continues to threaten putting the Cannabis Control Commission into receivership, but that has not happened yet. Licensing awards to the existing medical dispensaries was Arizona's attempt at getting it right. So here's Karen Black with the...
I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. Forefront Ventures Corp is at the forefront of this week's Arizona report for two reasons. First, the Phoenix-based MSO announced on June 26th it would sell shares totaling just over $5 million Canadian dollars. Then they revoked the offer 8 days later, citing market conditions and uncertainty over U.S. federal regulations. Secondly, Forefront co-founder and past president Chris Crane was named chairman of the board, replacing Robert Hunt. Mr. Hunt stepped down with no public reason given, though we're told the split was amicable. Dab Day brought bad news for Dime Industries. The company, which does business as Nature's Wonder, voluntarily recalled some of its Mint OG concentrate extract. It tested positive for piperonyl butoxide, a pesticide that can cause everything from mild itching to vomiting. No illnesses have been reported. The batch ID is MOGBL0405. Speaking of Dab Day, Trulieve and Abundant Organics hosted a dabbed and sizzled dinner on July 10th in Chandler, Arizona. Diners were treated to authentic Brazilian cuisine paired with curated concentrates. As for other cannabis activities, the Hemp Industry Trade Association of Arizona is hosting a networking function this coming Tuesday in Central Phoenix. The Wesson Gun Equality Act's petition to legalize gun ownership for Arizona medical marijuana cardholders without felonies or major mental health issues is now on change.org. If you're an Arizona resident, search for John Taylor or scan the QR code on your screen to sign and support this important effort. That's the Arizona Cannabis Report. I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting, reporting for Weed Talk News.
One state that won't even get a medical program going is North Carolina. Sure enough, for the third straight year, the proposal for a medicinal program got shut down by that legislature just when it looked like there was some hope. 4 other states have cannabis questions on the ballots this fall. Arkansas is looking to expand its program. North Dakota is looking to launch. Nebraska is trying to launch a medicinal program. And of course, the battle in Florida continues. The Smart and Safe Florida movement welcomed another $1 million donation for the cost from the nation's largest multi-state operator, Trulieve. Trulieve is based in the Sunshine State. So speaking, though, of sunshine, it's been really hot in Nevada over the past week, with temperatures hovering over around 150 degrees. So let's check in with Tina Tasaka in Nevada to see where that state has opened social clubs, but business is not exactly booming in Las Vegas, where there are now a handful of places to socialize and enjoy. So here's Tina with all that.
I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies, and this is the Nevada Report for Weed Talk News. We're back. Here's the latest news in consumption lounges. Nevada Cannabis Board disqualifies 60% of social equity lounge applicants, citing residency issues. An internal audit by the Cannabis Control Board, CCB, found that 6 Nevada cannabis applicants failed to meet stringent social equity criteria, leading to their disqualification. The audit called by CCB Executive Director James Hum revealed discrepancies in residency documentation required under social equity provisions. These provisions, known since 2022, are designed to benefit individuals and communities disproportionately impacted by previous cannabis prohibition laws. Applicants were required to meet criteria related to ownership, residency in areas affected by high poverty and arrest rates, and a history with cannabis-related offenses. The disqualified applicants did not meet these qualifications, highlighting the need to maintain the integrity of the licensing process. We have previously reported on the Diamond Shrooms brand, and in the state of Arizona, 4 people were sickened. Just 12 days ago, it got a lot worse in Nevada. The U.S. Food and Drugs Administration, FDA, has issued a recall for all flavors of the Diamond Shrooms brand, which includes chocolate bars, infused cones, and extreme gummies. The Nevada Cannabis Compliance Board has reported that 39 people have fallen ill after consuming these products, with 23 requiring hospitalization. The FDA discovered substances such as 4-acetoxy-DMT and Cavine in the products. Affected individuals in 20 states reported symptoms including seizures, depression, agitation, abnormal heart rates, blood pressure, nausea, and vomiting. The FDA advises consumers to avoid Diamond Shrooms products and return them for a refund, and recommends that retailers cease selling them. Parents and caregivers should inform young adults and children about the recall due to the product's potential appeal to younger individuals. Do you love poker? Do you love Saturday night? Well then, come out and support your Chamber of Cannabis on July 20th in Las Vegas for the High Rollin' with the Chamber. Registration begins at 6 p.m. and the games begin at 6:30 at the Sahara Casino Poker Room. For more information, please see the Chamber of Cannabis website or Instagram. That's it for the 702. I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies and Weed Talk News.
That'll do it for the A block or first section of Weed Talk News. We have plenty more ahead of us.
Now it's time for an editorial from Pro Cannabis Media. I'm Jimmy Young, founder of Pro Cannabis Media, a production group that tells the stories of the cannabis industry in their own words. So, thank you, DEA, for allowing the public to comment on the proposed rescheduling of cannabis to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act. Now, I'm asking you that you embrace the initiative and the findings of the Health and Human Services to move this plant medicine off the most restrictive Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act and to Schedule 3. Like many in the industry, I too think it should be completely descheduled because this will be the first plant medicine to be controlled by the government on Schedule 3. We consider this plant a medicine and not a drug, making that distinction between synthetic cannabinoid creations and the natural plant medicine that has been used for thousands of years medicinally. In fact, I believe all drugs on the CSA should be reviewed and placed in new proper scheduling categories that fit its effects based on the science and research that exists now. Think about the CSA origins with the disgraced President Richard Nixon, who signed that bill into law in 1970. Do you think we've learned more about these substances over the past few decades? Of course we have. The placement of cannabis in Schedule 1 alongside heroin, LSD, and ecstasy, showed a total misunderstanding of the plant and how people have used it medicinally for centuries. Did you know that graduates of our oldest medical schools wrote 5 million prescriptions for cannabis between 1900 and 1910? Now, most of those were written prior to 1906, when cannabis was listed as a poison before the passing of the Pure Food and Drug Act, paving the way for prohibition. Prohibiting it, however, was even more of a mistake because that decision was based on money, greed, preserving the pulp industry, maintaining racial segregation in the South, and growing distrust towards the anti-war protesters at that time. Mr. Nixon referred to those as long-haired hippies of the 60s. It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Now, let me tell you my cannabis story. You know, I've had 4 major surgeries in the past 23 years and suffer from osteoarthritis with a variety of metal parts in my body and one on deck. Now, thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore. So I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weegits filtration system. What? The Weegits.com, Weegits, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. The guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. Now, add in the code of PCM TV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weegits.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Welcome back to the B block or second section of this week's Weed Talk News. I'm Elena Pinto. A new law in California is wreaking havoc with the vape community, where the state has now outlawed disposable vapes. The law has an issue with ion lithium batteries that fuel the concentrates. That state treats the disposal of those batteries as hazardous waste. So California continues to struggle by trying to balance the demand for product and the new rules and regulations in that golden state. One of the newest states to approve the legalization of cannabis is Minnesota. Even though that state has not opened its legal business yet, there is a product that is appearing on the shelves of already existing liquor stores. That's right, THC-infused beverages. When the legalization vote took place 2 years ago, legislators unknowingly allowed language that opened the door for these products derived from hemp to be sold. Based on sales over the first 2 years where they have readily been available, it's been pretty successful. $200 million. Sounds pretty good. Practically every liquor store in that state has a reserved section for the THC-infused beverages that are selling like craft beer. Even on that side of the beverage industry that was in trouble in Minnesota during the pandemic, but now this loophole is allowing low dosing of THC in beverages to be sold. Not far from Minnesota is Michigan, and that's where Amie Carter reports from every week.
I'm Amie Carter from Michigan Weedsters with this week's Weed Talk News. State regulators are reportedly rolling out plans to ban a potentially harmful ingredient that's found in vaping. MCT oil is derived from coconut or palm trees and used to dilute cannabis oil. But inhaling its vapor has the potential to cause respiratory problems like shortness of breath and lung inflammation. Testing requirements will go into effect in October. Industry leaders are up in arms after city officials in Detroit reportedly voiced plans to ban or restrict weed-related billboard advertising in the city because some local residents and at least one member of city council are tired of looking at them. Two Michigan lawmakers, State Reps Graham Filler and Jimmy Wilson Jr., are teaming up to reform the state's marijuana laws by merging the regulations for recreational and medical cannabis into a single system. House Bills 5884 and 5885 were recently introduced. Congratulations to Meds Cafe, who's celebrating the grand opening of their Ann Arbor location. Meds Cafe is a Michigan-owned company who also has locations in Alpena, Sheboygan, Lowell, Manistee, Rogers City, and Gaylord. Make sure you check out Meds Cafe. I'm Amie Carter with Michigan Weedsters for this week's Weed Talk News.
In Wyoming, a lawsuit has been filed challenging the new ban on hemp-derived beverages. The suit claims that banning Delta-8 products derived from hemp is against the law established by the Farm Bill of 2018. The lawsuit says that by banning hemp products, quote, creates insurmountable confusion around criminal liability and destroys the mere act of processing hemp into consumable products, unquote. Meanwhile, in Virginia, they've banned Delta-8 products, sort of. You can get them online, just not in stores. Hasn't anybody taken the time to educate lawmakers about this complicated plant? Here's our Virginia correspondent, Joe Parsons. Maybe he can do it.
I'm Joe Parsons with the Virginia Cannabis Connection, and this is the Virginia Cannabis Report on Weed Talk News. I hope you all had an amazing holiday. And over the holiday break, I spent a lot of my time reaching out to as many people as possible to raise awareness about the DEA 60-day comment period and how important it is to get your opinions out there. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that is coming to an end on July 22nd. So if you haven't already done so, be sure to head on over to regulations.gov today and make your voices heard. A lot of people I've spoken to feel their voice simply won't make a difference, or they're afraid of employers or family knowing how they really feel. Well, comments to the DEA can be completely anonymous and are absolutely vital to help end federal prohibition once and for all. While the schedule change doesn't free the plant, it is a long-awaited step forward in the right direction. And let's face it, not doing anything at all and not making a comment is like complaining about politics and how bad the leaders are doing, and then not voting. This amazing opportunity to speak is no different. If we don't speak out, then we're going to be leaving it into the hands of the prohibitionists that have kept cannabis as a Schedule I substance for all these years. Locally, the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority has followed the DEA's playbook and has recently opened their own public comment survey as well. This survey, also anonymous, is for all Virginia medical patients to share their opinions on how well the Virginia medical program is running and how it can improve to better serve its patients. Same with the DEA comment. I feel that this survey is equally vital if you, like me, rely on the medical program here in the Commonwealth. Now, they're open to comments about pricing and accessibility and many other things like transparency that are seriously lacking in our medical program. Now is your chance to let the VCCA know that we need more safe and accessible places for our plant medicine. If you think there should be more diversity and less big marijuana in Virginia, let them know. If you want real concentrates like batter and shatter, write it down. And definitely, if you're like me and think $70 for an eighth of flower is ludicrous, then by all means, let's work together here and let your voice ring loud and clear. Lastly, after patiently waiting to find out the results of Health Service Area 1's license winner, the VCCA has released a statement on their website saying, due to continued investigation, there is an indefinite delay in the announcement. I reached out to the VCCA to question the cause of the delay and what exactly was being investigated, and perhaps when a winner would be announced. The VCCA replied rather promptly with, currently, we don't have any information to share beyond the statement on our website, and we will update that information as circumstances warrant. I will have the results of the HSA 1 winner as soon as I get one, so stay tuned to Pro Cannabis Media. Well, that's going to do it for this week. From the Virginia Cannabis Connection and Pro Cannabis Media's Weed Talk News, I'm Joe Parsons. Until next time, stay lifted.
The largest hemp market for Delta-8 products is the state of Texas. In that state, you can't buy Delta-9 THC cannabis products, but you can buy just about anything else in any store that wants to sell those products. With more from the Lone Star State, here's Lisa Williams.
I'm Lisa Williams, founder of the Toke Agency with the Texas Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. All right, bringing you the latest, greatest in the Lone Star State. Hold on to your hats because we've got exciting stuff brewing in Bastrop and in Dallas. Bastrop, which is known for its historic charm and vibrant community, might soon be making headlines for a whole new reason: marijuana decriminalization. That's right, folks. Activists in Bastrop have wrangled up enough signatures to get marijuana decriminalization on the local ballot. Just last week, they turned in those signatures, crossing the finish line just in time. Now it's up to voters to decide if we're ready to loosen the reins on the cannabis laws. If this measure passes, it could mean a significant shift in how we handle low-level marijuana offenses. Instead of roping people into the criminal justice system for a bit of herb, we would be decriminalizing such offenses, freeing up resources and sparing folks from unnecessary legal troubles. It's a move forward towards more common sense cannabis reform, something many Texans have been rallying for. So what exactly does this mean for the city of Bastrop? Well, if voters give the green light, the local law enforcement will be directed to make marijuana possession a low priority offense. In other words, we're talking about a significant reduction in the penalties and a step towards more lenient cannabis laws. It's high time we start seeing these changes, and Bastrop just might be leading the charge. The push for decriminalization isn't about keeping folks out of jail for minor infractions. It's about reflecting the evolving attitudes toward cannabis in our community and recognizing the benefits and lower risks associated with marijuana. And there's a growing consensus that our laws need to catch up with the times. But that's not all, folks. Dallas is also in the spotlight this week with major moves. The Dallas City Council is considering a resolution to support statewide marijuana decriminalization. This shows a recognition from larger cities that our cannabis laws need some serious overhaul. And Dallas has always been a trendsetter, and their support could have a ripple effect across the state. So whether you're a fan of Willie Nelson, a supporter of common sense reform, or just someone who believes in the justice system, keep your eye on these two cities. The outcome could pave the way for other Texas towns and cities to follow, bringing us closer to a more sensible approach to cannabis. I'm Lisa Williams, founder of the Toke Agency, with the Texas Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News.
Well, that'll do it for the B Blocker second section of our news show. A reminder that the full show is available on the homepage of procannabismedia.com. But when we come back, we'll check in on the stock market and head west for more coast-to-coast cannabis coverage. Plus, PCM founder Jimmy Young is sharing his public comment on the move to Schedule 3 in a special editorial. Don't go away.
Now it's time for an editorial from Pro Cannabis Media.
Now imagine if it wasn't banned in 1937. Every doctor, nurse, and researcher who I've interviewed confirmed my belief that we would have less cancer, less autism, less epilepsy, Crohn's disease, and many other autoimmune disorders. That Schedule 1 listing is supposed to list drugs that have no medicinal value that can be highly addictive. Once again, it makes even more, it all ridiculous, basically, that this plant has been vilified for as long as it has been. Look at the number of lives lost on opioids, and that's a Schedule 2 drug? The demonization of this plant medicine that has saved thousands of lives is rooted in race, nepotism, power, and money. It's time to change federal law and put one regulatory board in control of the cannabis sativa plant for both the hemp versions and the current Delta-9 THC plant, now legal in 24 states and decriminalized in 38. Let the newly created Federal Regulatory Commission deal with the FDA, the USAG, ABC, and of course the DEA over federal regulations for the industry. Now, Senator Chuck Schumer's CAOA bill in the Senate calls for the establishment of a regulatory group that could help guide proper, realistic, and fair regulations for the various derivatives that come from the cannabis sativa plant. The fact that the intoxicating cannabinoid THC is a buying decision by the uninformed public, and the fact that our elected officials think that limiting the percentage amount in these products will keep the public safer is ridiculous. Learn about the entourage effect and the endocannabinoid system and how it is absorbed in the human body so you can make the proper informed decisions about regulating the plant medicine we call cannabis sativa. We all in the industry have an obligation to educate the public, and especially our elected officials who are not taking the time to read the overwhelming anecdotal evidence now supported by science and research regarding the benefits of responsible use of this product. Please educate them that this is not a gateway drug, and in fact, it is more of an exit drug for dangerous, more prescribed drugs like the opioids that are killing young people. Now, the entire text of this rant for the PCM Public comment is available on our LinkedIn page and our website. For now, I'm PCM Founder Jimmy Young. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Coming up on We Talk News this week, WNBA superstar and Olympic champion Brittany Griner gets busted at a Russian airport for carrying hash oil.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elena Pinto, and this is Weed Talk News.
Hey, everybody. It's Brandon Jones with Big Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report.
I'm Karen Black from Green Finger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report.
I'm Matthew Friedlander, coming to you from the owner's office here at Skagit Organics.
I'm Amie Carter from Michigan Weedsters.
My name's Tom. You can find me over at Cannabis and Legalization News.
I'm Jill Goldsberry with We Talk News New Jersey, and we are back.
Andrew Behringer here reporting from Washington, D.C.
Our Canadian correspondent with We Talk News, Debi Facey with the Canadian Toke of the Week.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's Cannabis Stock Report for Weed Talk News.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Welcome back to Weed Talk News. This is the C Block, or final section of our weekly roundup of cannabis news from coast to coast. I'm Elena Pinto. The state of Hawaii has enacted some social reform legislation designed to expunge the records of nonviolent past cannabis crimes. But what's going on with the publicly traded stocks in the cannabis industry? We know Doug Miller watches these on a daily basis. Here's this week's High on Wall Street.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's Cannabis Stock Report for Weed Talk News. SNDL, formerly known as Sundial, is a Canadian marijuana and alcohol company that has been buying up companies for a couple years now. It recently acquired the debt of Delta 9 Cannabis for $20.6 million and entered a stalking horse agreement to purchase distressed edibles makers Indivior. So let's see how the stock chart's looking. It's trading around $2.15 and it's been running up. Look for it to pull back some to get a better price because it is bullish. And that's this week's Cannabis Stock Report. Reporting for Weed Talk News, I'm Doug Miller.
The state of Arkansas has got some serious momentum to improve their existing medical program. Our newest correspondent is Kevin Shakir. His brand, the Shake Man.
Hey, everybody. This is the Shake Man, Kevin Shakir for We Talk News. And we're giving the Arkansas report. We have Dr. Mary Clifton here, and she's going to talk about Swifty.
Swifty Med. We've been new in Arkansas since January. We offer a $49 medical card with no upcharges and no additional hassles. Perfectly compliant with all the state and DEA and federal requirements to get you your medical card, and safely and conveniently. We do pop-up card clinics all over the state of Arkansas. So look for a clinic near you and save your money.
Yes, that's right. Make sure that you save your money. And again, Swifty Meds, they're going to be around for you. And Arkansas, we need to support this industry and Dr. Mary Clifton here.
Very exciting with the new legislation that you have coming in the fall. So make sure to vote. You'll be able to get your cards telemedically. You won't have to be seen in person any longer, and your cards will be good for 1 year if this new legislation comes through. In addition to some testing and regulations that will be placed on the industry overall to make your cannabis safer and better than ever in Arkansas.
And we need that. You know that we do. So support, vote, vote, vote. Again, Kevin Shakir, aka the Shake Man, for We Talk News. And now back to Elena Pinto.
Now it's time to take a look at the international scene. In Switzerland, a group there is conducting a 6-month study on the impact of adult use sales. Over 700 people are enrolled in the study, and 80% of those in the study are males aged between 23 and 27. The study is looking at consumption patterns and ties to any social impact, particularly behavioral changes in public safety and order. The first 6-month results were released, and there is a trend towards flower and hash in the first 4 months of the study. Now that is changing towards edibles, tinctures, and extracts for vaping. And the study continues, but it matched much of the data from more mature markets in the US and Canada. Flower is king. And as more products are introduced, consumers are looking for more controlled microdosing and a better experience. And there's one country that was the first G7 one in, and that's Canada. And that's where Debi Facey reports from every single week.
This is Debi with We Talk News, coming at you with the Canadian Story of the Week. So what we have this week is OCS coming out with a much better, I want to say, program when it comes to the LPs, and that's going to help with their flow through. So it's going to minimize the amount of taxes that they have to pay. And on top of that, it's going to include them being able to have less product sitting in their facilities, less product sitting on the shelves, less products being recalled back, and less product being burnt at the end of the year. This is something that we are hoping will be a benefit to many of the LPs and dispensaries, especially due to the fact that the flow through will help many of the strains that maybe aren't necessarily selling fast enough to be able to be turned over for the facilities to be able to pop out something that is going to be more beneficial for them. Next, what we have is the expansion of the microprocessing here in Canada. So that means that some of the LPs are now going to be able to do microgrows. The microgrows are going to be on a smaller scale, and it's also going to be more geared to craft. That is going to be something that is going to be a great thing for us, especially if you are into certain strains that you can't necessarily get due to the fact of the LPs not producing them. But with the microgrows having a little bit more flexibility when it comes to their actual square footage, we're going to be hopefully able to see a little bit more of those well-known strains that we all love. And last but not least, the Calgary Stampede that ran from July 4th to the 14th. July 4th to the 14th, 2024. For the first year, had a consumption lounge. This is something that festivals, especially here in Canada, are trying to implement due to the fact that there are tokers, but we also want to make it a little bit more, not inclusive, but more of an everyday sort of experience where it's not necessarily frowned upon anymore, but it is understood. Also, at the same time, it's respected by all of the other attendees, so no one's being smoked up, smoked out, and not enjoying themselves. This is Debi Facey with the Canadian Story of the Week. Peace.
Every week, we like to share a clip from one of the most popular cannabis talk shows in the nation, Cannabis Legalization News, with Thomas Howard and his sidekick co-host Miggy 420.
We want to talk about some new trend in cannabis legalization news that has to do with what Congress is doing with their budget. It's appropriation season. And if you remember or a subscriber to the channel, you've heard me and Miggy talk about how the legislative process works quite a lot. And this has something to do with that. We're going to dive into it. We see Republicans in Congress trying to rein in several aspects of the cannabis plant, hemp, and also marijuana. So let's dive in. Here we are on the appropriations website. This was a hearing that happened in committee just this week here on July the 9th. And then, of course, they create records and then they publish them for all of us to see so that we can participate in this little thing we call democracy. We still think are a democracy. One of the things that they've done in this committee, and this committee is Commerce, Justice, and Science and Interior Environment, and Water Development. And so the Justice Department has a committee for funding it. They had this hearing. They've added new sections to the budget. Two in particular. One is an OG of cannabis law, the Robacher-Farr Amendment, as it's traditionally known. That's not necessarily what it is on an annualized basis, because as it is a section in the budget, it needs to be negotiated and renewed on an annual basis. Let's go to its markup and then discuss the things that have been passed by this committee. Now, the committee has passed it. It's moving toward becoming law. After it gets out of committee, eventually and gets to the floor. And then the Democrats in this committee were not successful at having this new ban on spending government money on rescheduling cannabis to Schedule 3, which of course the Department of Justice and the Attorney General and the DEA, all in the same administrative area of the government, have the ability to spend that money on moving it to Schedule 3. This new section that may become law in the next budget year, which starts on October 1st. So it never really gets done, though, by the time the budget expires. They have what they call continuing resolutions, and eventually the budget will probably get passed. It may be after January 20th. We don't know. I highly doubt they'll shut the government down, but they have before. Okay, let's go to these new sections that they've added and discuss how the prohibition against encroaching on states' rights has started to get a little wonky and shown the Republicans' hypocrisy. Okay, and so here we are. This is the one from June 24th that they put forward, and then they just passed on July the 9th. This is what the budget is going forward for the Department of Justice. They say right here in section 623, none of the funds appropriated or otherwise made available by this act may be used to reschedule marijuana, as such term is defined in section 102 of the Controlled Substances Act, and then they cite it, or to remove marijuana from the schedules established under section 202 of the Controlled Substances Act, and then they cite it. They are trying to use like the Robacher-Farr's defunding of the Department of Justice and weaponize it not to allow the states to act as the laboratories of democracy. And it's kind of hilarious. This is coming from the purportedly states' rights conservatives. You know, in states' rights conservatives, it's just code for like racist policies, it seems, because when it comes to like certain female rights or when it comes to marijuana rights, then, and this was in the record that is in the markups and the votes they took on July the 9th. You can listen to it if you really want. The Republicans were very upset that there's hodgepodge of like states not enforcing federal law. Oh, go figure. However, you know, only one Republican spoke out against this to allow the states to have the ability to enact their own medical marijuana programs.
I'm Jimmy Young, founder of Pro Cannabis Media, a production group that tells the stories of the cannabis industry in their own words. So, thank you, DEA, for allowing the public to comment on the proposed rescheduling of cannabis to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act. Now, I'm asking you that you embrace the initiative and the findings of the Health and Human Services to move this plant medicine off the most restrictive Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act and to Schedule 3. Like many in the industry, I too think it should be completely descheduled because this will be the first plant medicine to be controlled by the government on Schedule 3. We consider this plant a medicine and not a drug, making that distinction between synthetic cannabinoid creations and the natural plant medicine that has been used for thousands of years medicinally. In fact, I believe all drugs on the CSA should be reviewed and placed in new proper scheduling categories that fit its effects based on the science and research that exists now. Think about the CSA origins with the disgraced President Richard Nixon, who signed that bill into law in 1970. Do you think we've learned more about these substances over the past few decades? Of course we have. The placement of cannabis in Schedule 1 alongside heroin, LSD, and ecstasy, showed a total misunderstanding of the plant and how people have used it medicinally for centuries. Did you know that graduates of our oldest medical schools wrote 5 million prescriptions for cannabis between 1900 and 1910? Now, most of those were written prior to 1906, when cannabis was listed as a poison before the passing of the Pure Food and Drug Act, paving the way for prohibition. Prohibiting it, however, was even more of a mistake because that decision was based on money, greed, preserving the pulp industry, maintaining racial segregation in the South, and growing distrust towards the anti-war protesters at that time. Mr. Nixon referred to those as long-haired hippies of the 60s. Now imagine if it wasn't banned in 1937. Every doctor, nurse, and researcher who I've interviewed confirmed my belief that we would have less cancer, less autism, less epilepsy, Crohn's disease, and many other autoimmune disorders. That Schedule 1 listing is supposed to list drugs that have no medicinal value that can be highly addictive. Once again, it makes even more, it all ridiculous, basically, that this plant has been vilified for as long as it has been. Look at the number of lives lost on opioids, and that's a Schedule 2 drug? The demonization of this plant medicine that has saved thousands of lives is rooted in race, nepotism, power, and money. It's time to change federal law and put one regulatory board in control of the cannabis sativa plant for both the hemp versions and the current Delta-9 THC plant, now legal in 24 states and decriminalized in 38. Let the newly created Federal Regulatory Commission deal with the FDA, the US AG, ABC, and of course the DEA over federal regulations for the industry. Now, Senator Chuck Schumer's CAOA bill in the Senate calls for the establishment of a regulatory group that could help guide proper, realistic, and fair regulations for the various derivatives that come from the cannabis sativa plant. The fact that the intoxicating cannabinoid THC is a buying decision by the uninformed public, and the fact that our elected officials think that limiting the percentage amount in these products will keep the public safer is ridiculous. Learn about the entourage effect and the endocannabinoid system, how it is absorbed in the human body, so you can make the proper informed decisions about regulating the plant medicine we call cannabis sativa. We all in the industry have an obligation to educate the public, and especially our elected officials who are not taking the time to read the overwhelming anecdotal evidence now supported by science and research regarding the benefits of responsible use of this product. Please educate them that this is not a gateway drug, and in fact, it is more of an exit drug for dangerous, more prescribed drugs like the opioids that are killing young people. Now, the entire text of this rant for the PCM Public comment is available on our LinkedIn page and our website. For now, I'm PCM Founder Jimmy Young. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And finally tonight, despite all the doom and gloom in the industry right now, there is still plenty of hope. In fact, the Straits Research Group in the financial sector is predicting that the global cannabis market will balloon to $77 billion by the year 2032. That is a very optimistic number, but it's a number that continues to grow by 18% every year. So hopefully the industry will be thriving again in 8 years. That's this week's Weed Talk News. I'm Elena Pinto. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly, and we will see you next time.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Coming up on We Talk News this week, WNBA superstar and Olympic champion Brittany Griner gets busted at a Russian airport for carrying hash oil.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elena Pinto, and this is Weed Talk News.
Hey, everybody. It's Brandon Jones with Be Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report.
I'm Karen Black from Green Finger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report.
I'm Matthew Friedlander, coming to you from the owner's office here at Skagit Organics.
I'm Amie Carter from Michigan Weedsters.
My name's Tom. You can find me over at Cannabis Legalization News.
I'm Jill Goldsberry with We Talk News New Jersey, and we are back.
Andrew Behringer here reporting from Washington, D.C.
Our Canadian correspondent with We Talk News, Debi Facey, with the Canadian Toke of the Week.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's Cannabis Stock Report for Weed Talk News.